Welcome to The Pitch. My name is Robin Young, and I'll be your moderator for tonight's program. As a reminder, this is a monthly program and is scheduled for the second Thursday of each month, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. At each program, two promising companies present their technology and business plan to our panel of experts. As for me, I'm the publisher of Orthopedics This Week, the largest publishing platform in orthopedics and spine. Let me begin this episode with a simple question. Why does it cost so much in time and dollars to develop, test, and then bring to market an orthopedic or spine implant? The answer, simply put, is because every implant must go through a gauntlet of testing, clinical trials, more testing, and then a critical review by the FDA. What if the science of computer simulation could dramatically reduce the time, cost, and most importantly, the risk of bringing a flawed implant to market? Here is a truly one-of-a-kind company, Lifespans Limited, who is promising to do just that with the most interesting and unique computer simulation product called Alfonso. Here is their pitch.
Hello, my name is Sloan Culper, and I'm the CEO of Lifespans Limited. We're the makers of Alfonso, the Implant Simulator. Right now, the orthopedics industry spends billions of dollars each year bringing new devices to market. Alfonso is a revolutionary particle-based simulation system. It allows orthopedics manufacturers for the first time ever to realistically simulate implant migration, cutout, and other kinds of tests that are crucial for determining the safety and effectiveness of new devices. Alfonso delivers testing results 10 times faster than conventional methods, and is the only computer simulation technology currently able to simulate material damage such as cracking, crushing, and other behaviors. Already, 5 of the top 10 orthopedic implant manufacturers by revenue use Alfonso for their implant testing needs. Our customers get access to a powerful library of industry-standard ASTM tests, as well as custom tests developed by our engineering team. Alfonso is perfectly suited to today's complex 3D printed implants, as it can test both the failure and subsidence of complex implant geometry. Going far beyond conventional FEA, we've been able to introduce the industry's first ever hyper-realistic model of bone tissue, accurately capturing behaviors like cracking and crushing. Our models of bone, foam, and implant materials are backed up by comprehensive validation testing overseen by PhD-level engineers. The technology powering Alfonso is truly a world first, with patents granted in Europe and pending in the United States and China. In another industry first, Alfonso is available for our customers 24 hours a day using our Alfonso Cloud instant testing platform. This allows customers to upload their implant models, select tests that they wish to run, pay for them, and then collect results once the simulations are finished. Helping our customers to interpret the results of their simulation is a 15-person team led by biomedical engineers from MIT and orthopedic surgeons from the University of Hong Kong. The total addressable market for Alfonso in the orthopedics industry is over $2 billion. Alfonso's one-of-a-kind particle-based method allows us to deliver results to implant manufacturers 10 times faster than conventional methods. Our business earns revenue through a combination of standard simulation jobs, custom jobs, and strategic partnerships with major implant manufacturers. We've raised over $3 million from venture capital and angels and $1 million in non-dilutive grants. In 2022, we plan to raise a second tranche of Series A of $4 million and a Series B of $15 million. On behalf of the entire Alfonso team, thank you for your time, and we hope to hear from you.
Thank you. That was fascinating. So presenting on behalf of Lifespans Limited and their product Alfonso is their CEO and founder, Sloan Culper. Let's start the questioning with Audrey.
So Sloan, I think this is fascinating and maybe a little bit of a dream come true for engineers that are designing and developing products to have a way to do testing more quickly. But I have to say at the same time, it's remarkable and maybe a little disturbing to see the bone quality degrade in the video.
Yeah, that's
I
what
remember.
that's what my wife, when she sees these videos, she's like, "Oh my God, I can't look." Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of picture the way someone described it to me years ago, that your discs become like saltines instead of jello over
Mm,
time. And yeah, that your imaging really hits the bone area, but also disturbing. So yeah, I've got a few questions for you.
nice.
And first, I'd like to understand um, what the use has been in of your testing and regulatory submissions to date, and
Mm,
what kinds of comments, questions, or critiquing the FDA has done on the methodology, if any.
sure, sure. So so far, the focus of our work has really been. I mean, we launched the tool just in AAOS 2021 in San Diego. Uh, we've been focused on really the pre-regulatory part. So selecting best and worst case scenarios internally and running what I would say the first 50% of um, of the development process. Obviously, for a company like ours, expanding the potential use cases to actually be part of a regulatory submission is key for us. But we've been working towards that quite deliberately. So we haven't actually plopped this in front of the FDA yet, but we did have a pre-submission call with them as part of the MDDT process. So if you're familiar with the medical device development tools process, this is basically a way for a tool like ours, which would be the first in the industry to get MDDT, what they call a qualification. It's basically a way for a tool like ours to allow for our customers to do submissions and for the FDA not to be surprised by it. Generally speaking, their comments during that meeting were quite supportive, but the proof will be in the pudding whether they give us qualification or not.
So this is the kind of tool that one could present with a number of CAD models, let's say,
Yes.
and kind of help determine which has the best chance of succeeding based on static testing.
Yeah, and there's a few differences between our tool and what you normally see in the industry. Mm-hmm. So one thing is that we really are able to capture damage in ways that have not been captured before. So it could be damage to the implant, it can be damage to the foam or the bone that's in the model. And that's really unique. That is what is covered in our patent. The way that we accomplish this is we're modeling it in a way that has not been done in orthopedics before. Mm-hmm. So for our customers, we're really focused on that kind of problem. If they're concerned about migration, if they're concerned about damage to the implant, that's really our bread and butter.
Well, thanks for all that. I think it is a very interesting tool. I noticed in your market sizing, some of the assumptions that you used for the market sizing. So what I hear you saying is maybe this is a much more focused, like it's not intended to replace all the testing, all the mechanical testing that would happen. Right. Yeah. So your maybe your assumptions as time goes by and you hone in on what testing you are replacing or able to replace, you might find that your potential market size is smaller, right? Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, it's a little bit hard to nail down exactly total addressable market on little sub markets like this, but I would say that I'm confident our addressable market is at least in the hundreds of millions, just because while we are not looking to replace everything, we are looking to change the way that testing is done. And simulation up till now has been used in a very small way, I would say. And I think by unlocking the ability to model material damage, I think that's actually going to make quite a big difference. And position that I'm in at the moment is it's not always that you have a product that you feel quite confident is an industry changer. Oftentimes we have to make do with incremental, and I love working on incremental products, but I do feel as though this one should become a major part of how orthopedic development is done one way or another. And that is reflected in the fact that I feel our addressable market is large.
Well, I look forward to hearing more in the future. It's definitely an incremental leap over, the kind of finite element analysis I was doing 30 plus years ago. So congratulations. I'll now pass it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you, Audrey. Mike, your questions for Sloan.
Sloan, good to see you again. So just,
Hi, Mike.
just as a disclosure, I've been working with Sloan on a couple of projects recently. And I would say that when I first saw this technology, when they launched at the Academy, Orthopedic Academy, the off-cycle one, I think in August of 2021, I thought this was one of the coolest technologies on the floor at the time in terms of unique technology that was applicable to orthopedics. I'd never seen anything like it. So we've been using it, just as Sloan says, to try to hone in on the right products to test. Every time we've done an ASTM test, in my experience, we started the test, we've gotten a little bit down the road and realized, whoops, we missed something, we didn't see something, we have to change something. So the hope is that this technology would eliminate that. And I think we're sort of seeing that. Sloan, how or is there a way to validate this versus either a real life scenario or an accepted FEA model? I mean, how have you validated this technology as
Sure.
Accurate?
Well, so validation is an ongoing process for every kind of test that you can imagine. Even for an ASTM test, it's not going to give you accurate prediction of every clinical case. So what we have done in terms of setting a robust foundation for all of our validation is we have conducted quite a lot of basic research to make sure that our material models of polyurethane foam, our material models of bone, our material models of implant materials like 3D printed titanium and things like this. We've conducted a lot of background research ourselves that is quite separate from the service that we provide for our customers. So we'll, crush specimens ourselves, and we'll do a comparison exactly against that. We'll reproduce ourselves the ASTM tests like screwing in, pulling out. We'll do more complex tests ourselves like 2028, which is the humeral head and glenoid. We've been working on both publishing and also preparing so that we have something to provide our customers some reference information. Basically, it's just hard work, and we get closer and closer to high precision result for each kind of test that we do. But I would say the underpinning of the technology in terms of being able to match, say, bone tissue behavior, we've been able to demonstrate that we can achieve incredibly accurate results. So for instance, we worked with a Synthes data set on a paper that we worked on with their engineering team, which we presented at OTA last year, which was we took 20 different humeral head bone specimens and crushed them. They had all different bone mineral densities. And basically we were able to match the all the little nooks and crannies of that force displacement curve as those many different bone specimens are getting crushed, for instance. So I know that we're producing results that are real.
Have you been able to do that, sort of demonstrate the predictive nature by comparing your results to one of the ASTM tests, 1717 or
Yes.
22? Good.
Yeah, so we do that all the time. And actually part of our process with that we're going through with the FDA right now is we are reproducing some of the ASTM F543 studies.
One last question. In the materials provided ahead of this session, I know that you were raising money. Is that correct? What are the use of the funds you're going to raise?
A big part of it actually is to hire salespeople who are going to be US-based sales. So that is where a big part of the earmarking is, because the core technology is really now quite firm and developed. The other side of it is going to be on just what you were asking about, Mike, on the validation work. We have to just keep doing validation work. So money has to keep going in to make sure all our models are really solid. That's going to be the foundation on which our acceptance in the industry is really built.
Thanks, Sloan. This is very interesting stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Sloan. That was an excellent series of questions and answers. Scott, let me turn the Q&A over to you now.
Thank you. Hello, Sloan. Nice to see you, and thank you for these very thorough answers. I also have to thank Audrey and Mike for somehow hacking into my computer and pulling all my good questions. So I have a few questions, but part of my challenge to you is to answer each question in less than 30 seconds.
Sure. I'm too chatty. Yeah, I'll be quick.
That's not a judgment. It's part of the challenge. So as you're building out your library and your databases and your validation, how much are you depending on, for example, the data that emerges from using one manufacturer's screws and plates and hardware, and then using that as foundational to help support another reference point with, I'll make it up, you got DePuy screws, you've got Medtronic screws, you've got Stryker screws. Are you able to keep all of these things separate, or do they build on each other?
Well, we have to keep them separate. And of course, we can't erase our own brains. So we do build our experience in each time, but we do not use different customers' data as reference points directly. However, every consultant has to use their knowledge for each time, right? So of course, we see what happens with the different manufacturers, and in broadly speaking, we can make, we can give advice to make sure that other companies don't, fall into some of the traps, at least when it comes to our simulation.
Okay, so if I'm an engineer at company, Strong Screw, and I want to, I have 4 iterations of different screw sets, and I want you to do an analysis to tell me which one is going to give me the optimal outcome. How long does that take from when I give you CAD drawings, and how much does that cost roughly?
Sure. So the actual time to run a simulation, if you're talking about a screw, like doing
when do I get my answer? The question is, when do I get my answer? Is it 2 days, a week, a month, 2 months?
Now, the time for normal projects would be, maybe a few weeks to a month or so. But for actually running the simulation, that is usually within 1 or 2 days. So,
as the customer, I don't care how long it takes you. I just want to know the time between I place the order and I get my answer.
I would say realistically, you could think of us as a few weeks to a month for like a typical simple study.
Okay, and roughly, what would be the fee for that?
We would charge similar to what you would see in a physical testing lab. So we're talking usually in the thousands, tens of thousands for a typical job.
Okay.
And you get a full test report, as well as some data that you don't normally get from a lab, because we have access to more in-depth data about how the material is failing.
So you said that typically when you run this, you're doing something like 10 or 16 cycles, as opposed to, if I heard you right, as opposed to running millions of cycles that you would need if you're actually doing certain.
We really focus on the static tests, actually. So all the different static tests, which would represent a large portion of what you focus on during any development process. But for dynamic tests, we would usually do a small number of like monotonically increasing forces to give some predictive power.
And
but it doesn't replace dynamic tests.
So when you say, because this is not my area of mechanical testing,
okay, sure,
area of expertise, but when you say
yeah,
that you can garner information about the material itself, about
yes,
the material interface, and where the sort of failure is occurring. So
that's right.
It's safe to assume you can model that with different kinds of quality of bone?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Not every project requires this, but we absolutely can, and we do model different qualities of bone.
So if I'm thinking about doing that kind of analysis, so I'm a strong screws company, and
yes,
and I have the option to go into some cadaveric samples or sawbones, and I can do that on the Instron, and have my, if I'm a big enough company, I've got all of that in house. I've got all my Instrons. So it doesn't seem to me, having led R&D but not this exact function, that I have to wait 30 days to get those results in house. So are you appealing to firms that don't have the ability to do that?
Well, Scott, you ask a very small question. So I'm going to back up what we say, and I'm going to say, I know that we deliver results much faster than physical tests. So we definitely get results to you much faster. You don't need to produce the prototypes. You don't need to book the time in the lab and everything. All of the overhead that takes 90% of that time is unavoidable, because you're going to have conversation with your engineers. You're going to have to do some discussion. So all of that is actually part of the good stuff. You can't really avoid that. This is just because humans, you yourself, for instance, are the client. It takes some time to chat. The actual physical running of the tests takes, considerable amount of resources, even for some of the orthopedic giants. So I would say every single company can benefit from a significant reduction in time. The actual time it takes to run a test and get a result back, can be about 10 times faster than you normally see. So that's a major thing. Then you don't need to incur the costs of the prototyping. And quite crucially, we can do repeated tests in, say, the same cadaveric model, which you cannot normally do. Normally, what you're going to have to see is you might have to spend $100,000. You might only get 10 cadaveric samples, and all the cadaveric samples have all different demographic, indices, things that you didn't even want to look at, that, who knows what samples you'll actually get when you talk to the cadaveric tissue source. So we can do repeated samples in the same cadaveric specimen. That's very unique. You can never normally do that.
Yeah, no, that's a nice selling point, and thank you for explaining that. Let me ask one more question. Do you envision being able to do work on wear debris? And now that I realize that's dynamic testing, but as we think about interfaces and trying to assess wear debris opportunities.
I'm going to answer your question, but I'll also talk about something else we do. So wear debris is possible to look into, but I would say something that is much more exciting and interesting is we can do cement and implant simulation. We've been able to demonstrate that this is we can make accurate models of this. So wear debris from the perspective of its like biological significance and such, I would highly, highly recommend that someone use a typical lab for this, because the wear debris size is so, so small. The smallest wear debris can be, just a few microns. The resolution of our simulation, usually we end at around 30 microns or so. So we are not usually going to capture that. But as far as things like seeing if cemented implants are going to fail, we can do this accurately. So we're able to have like some intermediary material between the bone and the implant.
Okay, thank you very much, Robin. I think you want to move on to the voting, probably.
Well, we do, but I do have a couple questions as well. You say it's 10 times faster. Have you been able to
Yes.
quantify what that means in terms of savings, either on the low end or the high end?
Yes. Well, I mean, if we have a job that is on the low end, where you're going to be spending, say, you have $100,000 budget to answer a problem, I would estimate in the end we should be able to run, say, 5 times as many types of implants, roughly around this number.
So they're going to spend. So you're going to take the same amount.
You'll get a lot more data.
You'll just give more data. But so they're going to spend the same, but you're going to give them more data, basically.
I mean, from a business model perspective, we do position ourselves as a premium product rather than just like a cheap product. So we try to talk about it from the perspective of you save a time and you're able to make your decisions much better. And for what we do, we also try to eliminate your spend in other areas. But the complexity of the overall project, it's a little hard to exactly say. But I think, if you know that you have a year to solve a problem, I'm certain that we can get you to the next phase of your decision-making process much, much more quickly.
So you're accelerating the time to the regulatory stage and to market eventually. Yes. What that translates into in terms of dollars is still kind of a nebulous thing, but there's certainly the implied promise, right?
Well, I would say that, for instance, there is a project that's in my mind right now that has been a perfect candidate for us for one of the top 5 ortho companies. And we have run something like 20 different implant designs for them. Each implant design would have cost them tens of thousands to produce and months of iteration.
I'm gonna keep going here because we're gonna go quickly. So basically, the direction I'm going with this line of questioning is really coming down to your pricing. I don't know, and I need a short answer here, but my guess is that you sort of picked a pricing that seemed to come out of what your cost might be. And there's the other theory of maybe not the other theory of pricing, of course, which is charging what the value of this product might be to the customer, which is going to be back to your promises, your explicit promises, 10 times faster, and you capture damage better.
Yes.
So is your pricing tied to that value you're delivering, or is it tied to essentially what you estimate your costs might be? And quick.
No, it's tied. It's tied to value because we base it on what physical testing labs are charging. And basically then the trade-off is that you get your result much more quickly, but for the time being, the result that you are getting doesn't get directly submitted to FDA yet. So that's the trade-off.
But what will likely happen, I'm going to move quickly to my next question here because we don't have a lot of time, but what is likely to occur as you develop the business, I hope we're going to be open to some interesting new approaches to the pricing, where in effect, you're going to set up kind of like a partnership pricing where you share in the benefit with your customer quickly. There is clearly a wow factor here. You can see it in Mike Sherman when he saw you and how excited he got. So I'm assuming your customers are also reflecting back to you this wow factor. In addition to that, are they beginning, as they process what this is capable of doing, are they giving you some ideas as to where you might go with this product? And if they are, what are some of those ideas and where do you think this might go based on what your customers tell you?
Well, I think an area that our customers have spoken to us about and reached out to us about is on custom implants. So it is something that we have had in the back of our minds, but it's not normally a thing that we bring up with them right away. But for some of the major companies, that's been an area that they've asked us about.
One third real quick question. Has the rise in additive manufacturing and some of these really creative designs, does that help fuel your business?
Yes, because we will test the device itself as well.
And of course, as the designs change, their failure rate is going to change, I would expect as well. So Sloan, this is outstanding, and this is really, really interesting. But of course, you know what the acid test is. What does the audience think? So we are going to ask our audience, do you think Lifespan and the Alfonso simulation system is a game changer? Will it challenge the standard of care, or is there more work to do? Let's pull up our poll. Okay, all right, let's stop the poll. And clearly the technology was clearly a wow and a winner and a future game changer for sure. Well, thank you to the audience for participating tonight. That was really interesting. I think both companies were outstanding. And with that, I will wish everyone a very good evening. Thank you.